first class with the new glasses too, so this could be interesting. I'm going to try without it for a minute. George Adams, he was a newspaper columnist back in the late 1800s, I believe 1878, passed away in the 60s. He said this, and this is in your outline. There's no such thing as a self-made man. Everyone who has ever done a kind deed for us or spoken one word of encouragement to us has entered into the makeup of our character and of our thoughts as well as our success. That's George Adams' quote. That's very true. You think back. See, now I can't see y'all. Now that's better. So we're going to be doing this a lot tonight. I think that's a very sound quote. I would submit to you that those things, when an encouraging word, a pat on the back, has meant a lot to our makeup. But you do know that where there's and I'm off script already. We haven't even gotten 3 minutes in, but I'm throwing the notes away for a second. You know, where there's an action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, correct? That's proven. So let's look at this quote again and listen to it closely. Everyone who has ever done an unkind deed for us or spoken one word of discouragement has entered into the makeup of our character and of our thoughts as well as our failures. That's true too. This class is a study of the ministry of encouragement. I would submit to you, as much as a kind word can bolster someone and lift their spirit, an unkind word will do the same strength, just the opposite. So we do have to be very careful in how we administer our words to people. I was having some thoughts yesterday. I remember I was talking to a coworker about our kids, and I was bringing up, Audrey and Wyatt had a bicycle wreck one time. Our driveway to our home sloped downward into the garage, so they had plenty of time to slow down and skid into the garage and turn around. Well, they had a nice old bicycle wreck. So me, being the father that I am, wanted to preserve that moment and took a picture of it before I helped them. But I did go over and scoop them up and love them. I don't think you were scarred too much. But that made me think of a memory that was real when I was little. The grocery carts made of metal, the frame on the bottom, I got a little place for you to put water and stuff, but the top was missing. For some reason, my stepfather came home with one of those. The whole buggy part was missing, but the wheels and the frame and that little thing that held water was there. And I thought, what a perfect thing to ride down the driveway on. But I did it backwards. The stationary wheels were leading the way, and the ones that turned were in the back. And I got a little off kilter, and it turned sideways, and those wheels went flip. And I flew, and this is how it played out. I screamed, I cried. He walked out, and he goes, "Did you crack the concrete?" "It doesn't look like you did," and walked back up into the garage to continue tinkering. I'm sure he meant something very similar to what I did when I took the picture, but at no time did he scoop me up, love on me, offer me any kind of encouragement. And so I'm telling you that story. That wasn't a discouraging word, but it was an omission of something that maybe a kid of that age might have needed. But I can tell you that these encouraging words throughout our lives make up the baggage we carry with us through the rest of our lives. Tremendous baggage. And now I'm going to go to Alan's wonderful outline and read some things to you, because I don't want you to miss out on what he's got to say either. Words of encouragement are important, but by themselves they are never enough to satisfy the need of discouraged and hurting people. James and John renounce the concept of ministry in word alone. Let's look at a couple of scriptures. James 2:15 and 17. If a brother or sister is naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, "Depart in peace, be warmed and filled," but you do not give them the things which are needed for the body, what does it profit? Thus also faith or encouragement by itself does not have, if it does not have works, is dead. 1 John 3:16 through 18 says, By this we know love, because he laid down his life for us. And we also ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whosoever has this world's goods, and this part of the verse right here gets me, because it should stomp all over some of our politics. Listen to it closely. But whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and shuts up his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him? Whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and shuts up his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him? My little children, let us not love or encourage in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth. So the ministry of encouragement involves doing as well as talking. We started this out by saying words shaped our character, both good or bad. But what means a whole lot more to people is the actions we put behind it. So looking over at our outline, benefits of encouraging deeds. Your outline says it develops friendships, there's adventure, and there's kindness. Building and maintaining relationships through giving. In order to have friends, you have to show yourself friendly. I try to remind myself of that all the time, being the introverted extrovert that I am. I think I got an official diagnosis. Like I can be on when I have to be, but if I don't have to be, I really, really like to be off and sit around and let somebody else suck the oxygen out of the room. But if you're continually giving some encouragement, doing good deeds, small deeds, don't have to be big, you're going to have friends, you're going to be friendly, you're going to develop those relationships. What Alan wrote is givers are constantly making new friends who enrich their lives. They also improve existing ties by making regular deposits into their relational bank accounts. Steady deposits of love pay dividends more often or more valuable than any financial institution can boast. Many conflicts between people can be traced to a person taking more out of a relationship than they are willing to put in. That is so very true. Just as an ATM will reject attempts to overdraw an account, so will people who feel taken advantage of. So encouragement can develop your friends, your friendships, your relationships. People will want to be around you. They know they can count on you. And sometimes you'll be used, but I'm okay with that from time to time. I think back to Jesus, and you've heard me say this before, when he cured the 10 lepers, and only one came back to say thank you. He's like, yeah, oh well, I'm not going to change what I'm doing. I'm going to continue to offer encouragement, to offer healings, to continue to teach. He didn't, set a budget on what he was able to do. He did all he could do. So it develops those friendships. Another thing that it does, it creates an adventure. Alan says, another blessing enjoyed by givers is excitement and fun. Each day becomes an adventure as encouragers look for creative ways to bring smiles to their family and friends. There's no room for boredom when so many opportunities for giving abound. How true is that? And everything can be an encouragement, whether it's silent or no. Parking in a parking, don't take the first parking space, take the second or third or fourth or fifth further down the way and leave that first space for somebody else. That's even taught. Leaving that front space right there for someone of more renown, so to speak. Those little tiny gestures, holding doors, various things, it does go a long way. And then kindness. Kindness benefits its bearer by activating the biblical law of reciprocity. Christians should do what is right regardless of the consequences. But Jesus and Paul never hesitated to use reward as an incentive for righteous behavior. God's works are not meritorious, but they do pay dividends. Let's look at Luke 6:38. 6:38. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be put into your bosom. For with the same measure that you use it will be measured back to you. 2 Corinthians 9:6, and I believe these are mentioned in your outline. 2 Corinthians 9:6, but this I say, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. And then Galatians 6:7 through 10. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption. Will of the flesh reap corruption. But he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those who are of the household of faith. So this law of sowing and reaping is unbreakable. The more you sow, the more you will reap. Random acts of kindness have their own reward, and those who encourage bountifully will be blessed bountifully. Another benefit of encouraging deeds is it's contagious. Kindness creates a ripple effect. I have always said in my job, talent breeds talent, and it does. I have seen and reported on and written papers on the fact that if you coach or develop or work with your champion workers, others will rise to the occasion. But if you find yourself in the middle or on the bottom end trying to get those people up, the rock stars get discouraged and start to decay or leave. Talent will breed talent. Where there's an opposite, there's an equal and opposite reaction, so mediocrity will also breed mediocrity. But this kindness is contagious. This kindness is contagious. If someone does something nice for me, we just got back from moving Wyatt to San Angelo, Texas, and every day was 100 degrees, but seemed like we were the only ones that were sour. Everyone there was so nice, from the gas station attendant, when the pump didn't have my receipt and I had to go in to get it, they were so apologetic, to wait staff at a restaurant, to furniture people. Now granted, they were trying to sell us stuff, but by the same token, I'm a pretty good judge of what's being played and what's genuine, and we all came away with everyone as being nice, and that made me want to be nice too. It made me want to cooperate, or when something wasn't going our way, a delivery wasn't going to come at the right time, or we're going to do this on this day, but this sporadic thunderstorm is going to drop 9 inches of rain on us here in the next 10 minutes, and we have to pause for a second. It made it a whole lot easier. So this kindness thing, this encouragement thing, these works, these good deeds, so very contagious. Not only for the person you're giving it to, but the people around you and your immediate family, and it makes you want to do more. It really does. Is this where the heckling starts? Gotcha.
Absolutely. Have you ever been in the drive-through line at McDonald's or a fast food place, and the person in front of you pays for your meal? And so when you get up to the window and the lady says, oh, well, they paid your meal. So it's like, okay, well, how much is the guy behind you? So you pay his. And then they come up and they pay the person behind them. It's all because one person was kind. And who knows how long it lasts, but I mean, we'll have a whole string of people paying for the meal for the person behind them. And it just, there's a ripple effect.
It is true, it is true. I know that there's sometimes difficulty of people in the auditorium hearing across, and maybe the people watching on YouTube or on the phone, but Carol said, you know, you've been in drive-through lines and you've experienced the pay it forward type thing, where someone says, I'll pay for mine and for theirs, and they get up there and their meal's been paid for, and they're like, well, I'll pay for theirs. And it has this ripple effect, and you don't want to be the person that ends it, do you? You know, I imagine it ends when you know, some old fogey gets up there and says, I'm not doing that, or there's just no one else behind to pay for. That is an interesting thing.
Tammy said, well, let me pay for theirs. Well, theirs was quite a bit more than what ours would have been, but she said no.
I'm hoping we can take some of these scriptures that you'll be paid back in excess for that at some point. But I felt bad one time. We were in a restaurant, and it was the four of us, but we also were taking some food. I can't remember who it was for, but we had a to-go order on top of it. And someone graciously said, I'll pick up their check. And I bet they were pretty surprised when they got it. Anything we could do, because we didn't know who it was, but nothing at all. We're like, well, hats off to them, thanks. So you can get burned sometimes on that, but the burn doesn't burn that bad. Yeah.
You kept going.
The burn, yeah, exactly. I see a hand.
Once the old fogey stops the train.
So again,
I said, I don't know why it's an old fogey that always stops the train.
Dan wants to know why it's an old fogey that always stops the train. And he's going to remember that word of discouragement that I just used a minute ago for a long time. It's going to shape him. But it's not always. It doesn't have to be. My apologies for that, but it has a ripple effect. I know you're just kidding. It does have a ripple effect and can be contagious. Yes.
Think how much that means to the person at the end of the line that's digging for quarters to pay for their meal.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to mean a lot to that.
Oh, yeah. Imagine the person at the end of that line who may be struggling to pay how much it meant to them. She mentioned counting quarters and counting change. I remember one time, Leanne and I were poor married college students, so we counted our coins up, and we counted up to $8.19. Wasn't that the amount? $8.19. And as though a light bulb went off above our heads, we looked at each other, and both of us went, Ocha. Because that's the Thai food restaurant in Cookville, right off campus. And what we got every single time was $8.19 for the two of us. And so we took our windfall of $8.19 as a sign that we should go to Ocha, and we did. I saw a hand.
One time, I was at Wendy's, and I was actually complaining about it was a truck full of teenagers ahead of me, and I was mumbling to myself about how loud they were being, da 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 da, and then they paid for my bill. Really, really small.
Was there crow in that? There's another lesson in that. It's really the prejudging that we can sometimes do can slap ourselves in the face because of that. But this is contagious. Another benefit of did I hear somebody? Yeah, Vic.
It's so much easier to be nice and to be, I guess, willing to help someone who is very thankful as well. And their thankfulness has always put me in even a better mood. If I go into that situation, kind of dragging my feet, get done doing whatever I need to get done, and that person is just overwhelmed with joy and happiness, I can't help but join in that kind of celebration. So
It is true. It's magnetic too, in some ways. You want to be around an energy like that. He was saying that you just can't help for it to be contagious. Another benefit, these glasses are really confusing me here. Contentment, finding inner peace and purpose through giving. I want to read what Alan had to say on this one. Giving produces the blessing of inner peace. It just makes a person feel better. It is a blessing to contentment, the pleasure of God takes in witnessing His children, encouraging others through good deeds. Still, helping others live more courageously is its own reward. Human beings were created with a need to make a difference, and I do believe that. We were created with a purpose, with a need to make a difference in other people's lives, and encouragement fills that innate desire. It is hard for an individual to think about his problems while trying to minister to someone else. There is no room for discouragement in a mind filled with concern for improving the well-being of others. This alone should be sufficient incentive not to miss another opportunity to encourage. It is. It's self-content. That line that Alan wrote about, you can't really be worried about yourself when you're trying to help others and do other things, happened to me on Monday. Audrey said something while we were on the trip, and we came back and we're getting ready to go to work, and she said something about my Sunday blahs or my Sunday scaries. Because all I'm doing, we come to worship, it's fantastic. We go home, I try my best to take a nap. Then we come to worship. And then when we get home, it settles in on me that I've got to go to work the next day. And there's problems, there's this, there's that, there's the others. But this past Sunday, just happened, we had just been off on a trip and doing things for Wyatt, doing things for others, and there wasn't enough time. I'll probably get back into the routine this coming Sunday. Don't get me wrong, I'll probably be pretty worked up Sunday night going into the next Monday, but yeah, if you're worried, not worried, but helping others, there's not a lot of time to get swallowed up in your own mishigash, so to speak, your own troubles. Number 2, giving as a privilege. Giving as a privilege. Self-centeredness versus giving. True success is being useful. There's some biblical examples we'll go over, and the giver creates a positive relationship in a better world. So giving is a privilege. In light of Jesus' promises, giving is not a burden, but a blessed privilege. It is ironic that self-centeredness never achieves what it longs for. The more one selfishly and obsessively seeks happiness, the more it eludes them. In real life, the difference is whether or not you are useful versus being a user. Are you useful or are you a user? So this giving is a privilege. The Bible is filled with tragic stories of shallow men and women who lived only for themselves. Ahab killed Naboth to possess his garden. Korah led a rebellion to acquire the high priesthood from Aaron. Absalom betrayed his own father to control the throne of Israel. Ananias and Sapphira lied to the Holy Spirit for personal advantage. These takers live on in infamy, and we learn from them. They are examples of what not to do, and we imagine. You don't want to be in that crowd. You don't want to be in that group. I remember this guy who used to be this and this and this, and you don't want to be like them. There's people in our lives right now that we talk about like that. You don't want to be like drunk uncle, so to speak. You don't want to be like whoever this person is. But there are also some good things. There's names of notable men and women who died to themselves and lived their lives in the service of others. These givers were abundantly blessed by God and are still admired today. Abraham gave his nephew Lot first choice of pasture land for their flocks. Prince Jonathan was ready to relinquish his claim to the throne for the good of the nation. Nehemiah gave up a comfortable life in Persia to provide political leadership for the reconstruction of Jerusalem. Paul counted all things for the excellency of the knowledge of Jesus Christ. What a contrast. Givers endear themselves to others and establish a network of loving relationships, while takers alienate people and have but one person on their team, and it's them. I'll tell you this, those that sing praises of themselves are usually singing solo. Those that are only worried about themselves are usually the only one worried about them, because no one looks at them in that way. So, in this aspect, giving is a privilege. In the Islamic faith, they give and the other person takes, because the taker, so to speak, does not want to rob the giver of the blessing of the given. I actually think that's interesting. We, especially here in the South, we get in arguments. Take this money. I'm not going to take that money. You take this. I'm not going to take that. I told you to take this. They start throwing money across at each other. No one wants to take it. And I think that's good in this way too. But robbing people of their blessings, allowing them to give, being a recipient of good works, a gracious recipient of good works, that is also a privilege, to be a recipient of those good works. It will help you. The duty of encouragement. The duty of encouragement. Luke summarized Jesus' ministry by stating in Acts 10:38, he went about doing good. He went about doing good. Because giving was the essence of the Savior's life, it is a holy habit to be cultivated by everyone who wears his name. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them, Ephesians 2:10. And saints are to be ready for every good work, 2 Timothy 2 and Titus 3. 2 Timothy 2 and Titus 3. So the duty of encouragement. I want to be careful when I say that it's a duty, because especially in today's society, I tell you what, submission is a tough thing. It really is a tough thing in our society. There's a whole string. Children submit here, wives submit here, fathers submit here, deacon, elders, all. School systems, teachers to the administration, students to the teachers, students to the parents. How many times have you heard someone say, I don't like to be told what to do? I would do it on my own, but now they're making me do it. Now I don't want to do it. At work, someone may be doing a task that they think is above and beyond their job description. We take that as a best practice. We write it into the job description. Now they're mad because now they have to do it. I'm like, really? They're looking about this far in front of their face and not much further. When we look at submission as something that is burdensome, we're only seeing this far. Because if we submit to what God asks us to do, that opens up a wide range of vision for us. To see people at their best, to see people grow, to grow yourself and to be your best. So in that essence, when I say this is a duty, that's a good thing. It is a good thing. We've already talked about some of the benefits of the intrinsic reward you get from encouraging and giving kind words and doing good deeds. So, any questions or comments before we jump into the bullet point number 4 he's got there? I appreciate the good comments leading up to this. Number 4, an eternal investment. I never really thought about it this way before, but in his outline he said, encouraging others as laying up treasures in heaven. Encouraging others as laying up treasures in heaven. Allen writes, Christianity is more than sound doctrine and pious words. It's laying up treasure in heaven by investing in others' lives here on earth. This is something that can be done anywhere, anytime, by anyone. It is not necessary to be wealthy, brilliant, powerful, or famous. All that is needed is a caring heart. All that's needed is a caring heart. You know, encouraging others is probably one of the safest investments that we can make. And being recipients of that encouragement proves that point when you were encouraged. Some people collect coins, spoons, stamps, dolls, but an encourager collects something even more precious. What would be more satisfying than saving up memories of playing a small but significant role in providing the supportive context people need for making lasting positive changes in their life? I agree with that completely. An eternal investment. Laying up those treasures. Number 5, little acts of kindness. I love this one. Giving is at the heart of the gospel. John 3:16, probably the most quoted verse ever. And I'm not going to quote the whole thing for you. I'm going to stop short after I say, for God so loved the world he gave. Full stop, period. There's much more to it. You know there is. We talk about Jesus and his sacrifice and those who believe should not perish. But really, at the heart of the gospel, in the heart of that verse, giving is the true essence of living. But how should Christians give? People mistakenly believe that a gift must be expensive to be appreciated. Love cannot be purchased at a department store or a dealer showroom. Money and material possessions are often the least meaningful gifts. What people want and need is time. They would much rather have your time than that gift. And I'll submit this to you. People want and need time and attention of someone who cares for them. When love is withheld, gifts become empty apologies for a pattern of neglect. Presence cannot be substituted for presence. Presence with a T can't be substituted for presence. That would hit me pretty good. So, how are we doing up there? Good. The importance of small acts of kindness. Everyone hopes to do big things in life. The only problem is that this kind of attitude can blind a person to the importance of little things. Little things to men may be big things in God's eyes. What really makes the world go round is ordinary people doing small tasks very well every day. Encouragers must never underestimate the power of small things. And that is so true. The most meaningful gifts that I've ever received didn't have a large dollar sign. It wasn't a vehicle. It wasn't, I've never been given a vehicle. Oh, actually I have. Take that back. It's not that. It's the small things. I made this for you. My favorite gift out of all the gifts I got, I believe it was Christmas 2024, was a 2025 calendar that had pictures of the kids each day, and you just tore them off. And the good news is, if I could throw away that first picture that said 2025, I could reuse this calendar for the rest of my life, because it wasn't earmarked to a day of the week. It just said January 21, and there's the kids, or there's a vacation picture, or there's a this, or there's a bicycle wreck, I think, in there too. I think that made the calendar. So it's the small things. We can never underestimate that. And I'll submit this to you. If little things can be great things, how much more is that true when God is behind them? How much more can that be true when God is behind them? I want to jump ahead to number 6. Watching the clock up there. Number 6 in your outline, if you've got it. The test. Small efforts versus excuses. In John chapter 6, I believe Jesus presented a test. He asked his disciples, Jesus asked his disciples where they could buy bread. Again, I think this was a test. He knew exactly what he was going to do. Philip was the first one to respond. And without realizing the absurdity of his actions, he began to explain why his request was economically unfeasible. It's late. They can't get back. They can't buy. We don't have money. We can't get there. We can't get back. We can't. And his grade on this exam was an E, worse than an F. Meanwhile, Andrew, he displayed a weak but obvious faith, in my opinion. He had no idea what Jesus would do, but he went to work anyway, finding a boy who was willing to share his lunch. And he brought 5 loaves and 2 fishes to Jesus. Andrew must have felt embarrassed to present the Lord with his meager results, but somehow he knew it was the right thing to do. Jesus had the people sit down on the grass, and after blessing the food, multiplied it until more than 5,000 were fed. So, Andrew's grade, A+. A+. He didn't know what to do, but he knew he had to do something. The smallest effort is better than the greatest excuse. The smallest effort is greater than the greatest excuse. Better than the greatest excuse. So I question you with this. How would you do on Jesus' test? I will probably make a G, maybe. Honestly, truth be told. Because I struggle. I want to... I'm always talking to Wyatt and Audrey about playing chess, not checkers. You can't think one move. You can't just go, I'm going to jump here, I'm going to move here, because then the world collapses around you. You got to play that chess move out in all directions. Play them all out and play it out and try to figure out what can go wrong, what can go right. And then, as Alan preached in one of his sermons on the Q&A, make a good choice off the knowledge that you've got. So in order to make a good choice based off the knowledge you have, you've got to have some knowledge. You've got to study. You've got to evaluate and analyze and make that good strategic move. So I find myself a lot of times going, well, what about this? Couple things. What about this and this? To give food for thought. And I wonder where Wyatt got that. I think Wyatt's first word was actually, we joke about that. It's kind of cute. I wonder where he got that. But anyway, there's the test. How would you do on the test? God says, do not underestimate yourself. Your contribution may be small, but what counts is your willingness to let me work through you. This is the driving principle behind all worthwhile encouragement. Seemingly small acts can have a great impact on people's lives for good, and as we started the lesson out with, also for evil. So let's do good as often as we can. Let's do good as often as we can. We're going to celebrate the small. We're going to try to get through this before the bell rings. Examples of small acts with great impact. Your Bible class teachers who stand a post and teach a lesson, and oftentimes, don't raise your hand, but oftentimes feel overlooked, unappreciated. And I can tell you that you're not. That is also not my place to tell you how you feel, how you should feel. So I get it. But you are molding minds, future Christians, future leaders, future of the church. Notes for people. Leanne had a card ready for Wyatt. I had a letter in his mailbox when he got there, timed out to where he might open it after we left. Doing that for strangers. I have, left notes, left things for people just to be that encouragement. And is that a big thing? Didn't hurt at all. Very small thing. Meals. We do that a lot. We've got an organization here that does very, very well. The Take Them a Meal program works well. Sign up, do your thing. Doesn't take much to do it. Heats up the kitchen a little bit, and I've got to go somewhere else where the air conditioning is working good. But it's a small effort, but it goes such a long way. There's unlimited ways of small acts and everyday acts of kindness. Surrendering possession of the remote control is a small act of kindness, guys. Just so you know. It's almost to the point now, Audrey says it every night, Dad, do you want this? And the answer is always yes, most of the time. But that's a small act of kindness. Everyday acts. Helping others. Again, that parking in the far space. There's also a negative impact of withholding kindness. A negative impact of withholding kindness. And that, I want to read this to you because this was good stuff from Alan. On the negative side, the opportunity to discourage are equally infinite. As we were talking about the many ways to do small things, the discouraging side has just as many opportunities. They're equally infinite. Discouraging tendencies may be innocent, but that doesn't render them harmless. How many times have you said something and after it got out there, you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't have said that. Or worse yet, you said something not knowing you shouldn't have and still are oblivious to the fact that you shouldn't have. But it hurt somebody. You were, what's the word? Discouraging tendencies may be innocent, but that doesn't render them harmless. No evil intent is required to inflict pain. Courtesy, cooperation, and compliments withheld can be destructive in any setting. Being preoccupied, judgmental, or aloof may not seem like earth-shattering events, but the damage done to relationships may be irreparable. So real greatness comes from the small acts of goodness performed daily by those who trust God to bless even mustard seed size encouragements. So we have just a few more minutes. I want to go through these last things and just list them and talk about them. Then I want to hear what you've got to say if there's some time here. So 10 guidelines for giving. 10 guidelines for giving. 1, value yourself, because everybody has something to offer. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, that's not for me. And it may not be. Maybe not everybody's cut out for this or for that. but we all have something we can do. God would not have created us without that underlying purpose that we talked about a minute ago. Don't devalue or undervalue yourself. Everyone has something to offer. Don't barter. I never give something away, whether it be money or a gift, and expect something back. I had someone ask if they could borrow money from me a while ago, several years ago. If I can't do it, knowing I'll never get it back, I don't do it. But in this case, we could do it, and we gave money, knowing we would probably never see it again. We haven't. I just remember that because it happened, but I'm not walking around going, where's my money? But giving a gift and then automatically expecting something. I gave your kids something for graduation, but you didn't give our kids something for graduation. And I'm not bringing that up because our kids just graduated. That's that's one of those things that just gets off your tongue and you go, I should have said it like that. But or a birthday present. Let's use that one. Forget what I said. I got your kid a birthday present, but you didn't get mine a birthday present. That's backwards. That's wrong. So don't barter. Yes.
One of the small ways that we can give without expecting something back is when we're driving and you let someone out in front of you and they don't wave. They don't wave to say thank you.
Carol said one of the ways you can do this is to let somebody out in front of you and they don't wave. You expected something in return, but they didn't. If you can let that go, you're there. But take a lesson from me. Don't let them out in front of you. You can't drive as fast as I drive and allow people to get in front of you. They break your stride. Start early. Wake up each morning looking for something good to do. This lesson has touched me really deeply because these are some of the very things I struggle with in my life. And it's tough to wake up and, I've been extroverted introvert, probably the biggest pessimist in the world. You name it. Audrey asks me 5 times a day, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing. She goes, well, the scowl on your face says something different. I'm like, got to work on that. Been working on it for 58 years now, and we'll see. And here it is, begin at home. Practice kindness with the family. Act quickly. Respond to warm-hearted impulses. Be alert. Look for those opportunities to let somebody out in front of you, to take that space, to do something. Look for those opportunities. Enjoy giving. Find the pleasure in it. Find the pleasure in it. Redeem time. In other words, use your time wisely. Respect everyone. Treat everyone with dignity. Everyone. And think small. Focus on practical, everyday acts. Seize the small. That's the key. Seize the small. Anybody got any comments? Victor?
We forget sometimes how much impact we have, even with small things. But in Acts 9, Tabitha had done so many kind things for people that when Peter found out she passed away, he raised her from the dead. So, this is that's not going to work for us. But just to quantify.
Yeah. Victor said Tabitha did so many wonderful things that when Peter found out she had passed away, he raised her from the dead. So that won't work today for us. But you get the idea. You get the idea. Seize the small. Anybody else? Anybody else? You don't want to be that person that raises their hand right when class is dismissed and everybody else goes, oh, can't believe it. All right. Yeah. That's true. Anybody can open the door and let them go in front of them. Anybody can. Folks, I appreciate you being patient with me again. Even though the class is over, I still miss Alan. And you can tell him that when he gets back. Say, don't let Kyle do that again. But thank you very much for your attention.